Well, welcome to Jan-Piet's Choice. And we have a very interesting, you might even find it funny. I personally find it incredibly interesting little piece for you. By a very famous composer. But even if you know this piece of music, I bet my bottom dollar that you have never heard it before in this particular way. And it may even be true for most people who see us here on YouTube. Because as you know, for a few weeks we have been, thanks to our wonderful recording officer here at Scott, we have been recording Jan-Piet's Choice and posting them on YouTube. The one from last week is not out yet, but will be out soon as well. Anyway, so even the YouTube viewers may know this piece of music, but may have never heard it before in this particular way. So we're going to play it first of all. One hint is for one in the piano. even if you knew this piece of music, I bet you have never heard it before in this way. Does anybody, don't tell me what it is, does anybody know what it is? Does anybody really know that piece? Yes. You know it too? Or did you raise your hand or not?
Oh no, I just
No, okay, you just yeah, okay. So you know it. Anybody else? But yeah, surely you know the composer.
Oh, yeah.
And you know this exact piece, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I recognise it well.
Okay, but there's something funny about it, right?
Well, yeah, there's something different, but I can't put my finger on it.
Well, I try putting my finger on it. All the time. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not. You know this piece too. Yeah. And you realise you know what's wrong with it too. Because we talked about it the other day, remember? Yeah. And this is just a different way of doing the same thing with the same piece. And of course, the gentleman here knows exactly who the composer is. And other people, I bet you, can guess who the composer is. No?
Mozart?
Mozart, you think?
Oh, maybe not.
It is a dream.
That's the Mozart.
But in a way, fair enough, right? Because it's such a cute piece and so light in a way. It is this other composer, but it has aspects of Mozart. Avant la lettre, if you excuse my French. Handel, you think? I think Handel is also a good guess because it has the same this sparkle and brightness that Handel at his best has, right? And some really good chords that Handel at his very, very best sometimes has, right? So many people here today. Handel, but no, it's not Mozart and it's not Handel. I personally think Handel is closer. Would you agree, sir? Handel is closer to our composer here than Mozart. Right? Yeah, but it's not Handel either.
Is he Russian or European?
Russian, no. European, yes. But shall we tell them who the composer is?
No, you
Well, it's a four-letter word. It's Bach. But now the interesting thing is, it's Bach, and it's Bach, and it's also not Bach. And that's not because it's us playing. You can always say, well, it's not really Bach because somebody else is playing, right? In this case, of course, our violinist Jodie Ostenfeld here in Armadale, and I'm Jan-Piet. And of course, neither of us, I don't think, are related to Bach. So even. So it's obviously not Bach because it's us trying to understand Bach's notes to the best of our ability and then communicating it. There's of course there's an element of not Bach, but leave that aside. It's Bach and a little bit not Bach. Forget our interpretation of this. Puzzling, right?
So is it another of these where someone else has changed?
Yes, but before somebody else did a little bit something with it, not much, Bach himself did something with it. Quite a bit, in a way.
Changed the instruments?
Oh yeah. But then this other guy changed it back. Okay, so here's the story. Can you play this on your own? Of course you can. Off you go. It's fantastic, right? And it's great playing also. But now, when she plays on her own, question, is it now more Bach or less Bach?
I'd rather feel that it's more.
You think it's more Bach in a way without the accompaniment? Can you explain why? Or is it just a gut feeling?
Just a gut feeling.
A gut feeling. Is there anybody who thinks it sounds more like Bach with the piano?
I wasn't here for it.
That's all right. But we'll play it again.
The piano is essential.
The piano is essential, you
I
think?
think
Yeah. Well, we played. Yes.
I was just agreeing.
You would agree. You think it's better with the piano?
I think it's more Bach with the piano.
With the piano is more Bach. We'll play the beginning one more time with the piano. Obviously more Bach, you're saying, right?
I'm not so sure now, because I don't know whether the piano part is as Bach as the violin is.
You're not sure that the piano part is as much Bach as the violin part is?
Yeah, but I'm probably wrong, yeah.
No, I mean, it's, I think, a very, very valid point of view.
Yeah, that means it's wrong.
Now, I'm gonna do something else, and I didn't quite prepare this, but I'll play a few notes for you on the organ. Can we do that here, Rocco, with camera? I'll open the organ with a bit of luck, and I'll play a few notes on the organ.
Oh. A move, I think. No, a move, I think.
Tell me what you think of this. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry for the mistakes, but that's because I'm trying to read from Bach's original handwriting. And apart from that, what do you reckon? More Bach or less Bach in the organ? You think there's more Bach on the piano? Maybe it's even more Bach than the violin alone.
yes.
Yeah. Because it's bigger, it's organ, and that makes it sound more like Bach immediately, right? It's a bit like, it's a bit more like this. Well, it makes it sound a bit more like that. Alright, now, I don't know about Bach. I mean, that sounds like a weird sort of thing to say. People who have studied with me even for last year and a half in Armadale, think, well, if there's anything he knows about, then it's probably Bach. He's an organist and plays the harpsichord, piano, and he talks about Bach all the time, surely. But here's the thing, what I don't know about. It's so easy to think that Bach at heart was what instrument? Harpsichord? Organ, I think. So easy. All these organ works. I mean, the toccata I just played right at the beginning, is that not a quintessential Bach piece in a way? Right? If anything is emblematic for Bach, is it not that toccata? Right? And organ, for that matter. And in popular culture, Bach and the organ is always together, and Bach in the church. And was he not the organist in Leipzig, right, for many years? Well, the answer is, he was not. He was the music director. He never played the organ in Leipzig. That was the organist's gig. Bach was the conductor, he was the big the big composer and director, he didn't have to play anymore in Leipzig. He was over that. And before Bach was in Leipzig, he had a different gig where there was no church involved at all, because the court did a different sort of religion. Or this is something I forget. And sorry, reformed. and there was no organ involved in the service. So all that Bach did was play harpsichord, chamber music, do all kinds of cute, interesting things. Right? So I don't know how much truth there is in this popular idea, Bach, quintessential organist. I'm not sure about it. I'm sure there's a lot of truth about it, but there may be more things to it. And one of those things is the violin and this particular piece. Here is Bach, a few years before he gets this mega gig in Leipzig, right? As we often see it. Not really for Bach. I don't think he was very happy with it. He really wanted to get out of there again a few years after he got a job, but sadly he did never get out and he stayed there. And he found other ways to stay busy. But before Bach was in Leipzig, he was in his job, no organ playing, no church, no cantata stuff. He could do his own free-spirited thing. And at this stage, Bach has developed an enormous skill as an organist and organ composer. And we were talking about this morning. For me, it's a little bit like Bach in Köthen. He says, you know, all this organ stuff, yeah, I can work that out. Now I can do something else. And one of the things that Bach starts exploring in Köthen is his violin. Yeah, his violin, not just the violin, but I'm sure his own violin. Bach was a violinist, as well as a keyboard player. Was he more a keyboard player than a violinist? Maybe. But like every decent musician, of course he could play the violin well. And apparently, a few years before he goes to Leipzig as the big church music director, he is playing around with, what can I do? I worked out what you can do with the organ, and I showed everybody how to do it with my feet and my hand better than anybody else, for many generations to come as well. Now, can I do the same thing with the violin? Bach almost seems to say. And the answer is yes. It's just that he didn't stick with that violin idea for so long. But for the few years that he was obsessed maybe with that a little bit, and trying to really explore the possibilities of violin, he wrote these great pieces for violin alone. Alone, without accompaniment. And then he did the same thing for cello. And we'll talk another time about what a cello really was. But so, here is one of those pieces that Bach wrote for violin alone. No accompaniment. Right? No piano, no harpsichord, no lute, no string orchestra, nothing. Violin alone. And if you think that these become little simple light pieces, well, light, surely, but simple, easy, and not complex in a way, then obviously you're wrong, because listen again to the beginning. Violin solo, right? Senza basso, without accompaniment. Now you can say, that's just that one violin on its own. But is it really? Can you play this the first one? Okay, so that's the first violin in the orchestra, right? And then the second part. Well, is that the same first violin? I don't think so. For me, the first bar is the first violin, second bar, second violin, and the third bar, other stuff going on. And the first time it comes back. You hear? Let from the beginning. Second violin. It's a bit, for me, as if the violin, on her own, is playing a whole violin concerto movement. What Bach wants you to hear is this violin, but really a whole group of violins. Big ones, violas, cellos, double bass maybe harpsichord, a whole big Vivaldi-like concerto. Right? But only on the violin. 4 strings only, and we're gonna use them, mate. Yeah? That sort of idea. Okay, and yeah, of course that's only part of those 6 pieces, group of pieces that Bach wrote for violin all alone. And that every violinist who is serious about playing the instrument has to learn at least quite a few movements from. Is that fair to say? Yeah. But very few violinists, I think, learn all of those movements because it's a lot of work. You know, and a little bit difficult in a way in concert performance. Because, I mean, it's very pretty, but look, let's face it, who wants to listen to the violin all alone for longer than like 5-6 minutes? All alone? No, seriously, without piano. I mean, it's nice, it's beautiful, but after a while, I do think it gets a little bit sort of metaphysical, you know, like, you know, it was an enormous compositional challenge for Bach, and he did a marvelous job. But in concert life, on the concert stage, I'm not sure, what do you think? Is it fair to say? They're not often done in concerts. Recordings, yeah. Exams, A&B exams even. People studying at home, yes. But concerts, for audiences to just enjoy, to play a big piece on the violin alone, no. And in a way, Bach admitted that problem himself. Something like 10, 11, 12 years after Bach wrote this piece, he, perhaps somewhat last minute, was in need of a cute, little, fast-ish piece to begin a really festival cantata. In fact, this was on August 27th, a few days ago, but then many, many years ago, I cannot count so quickly, 1731. And this was for a cantata, a church cantata, and these cantatas were always a little bit last minute. In this case, maybe not, because it was years after he had finished writing most of his cantatas. He was sort of done with it, but he needed a new piece because this was a special service in church to introduce the new town council of Leipzig. They had elections, you know, and for the new town council, and here was the new town council festival cantata. And Bach needed a nice, cute piece to start, instrumental piece, to start off this cantata. And he says, I don't want to write anything new. Do I have something lying around? And well, one thing he had lying around, I'm sure, was a very good young organist. My own bet is that this might have been his oldest son, who was, I think, still at home at the time, or was maybe at home for a while. Hey, Friedemann, you want to play a solo next Sunday? Yeah, sure. Is it difficult? Oh, well, we'll find out. And the next thing I imagine, maybe, is Bach looking for a really difficult piece for Willem Friedemann. And what he does is he takes his violin piece. He says, look, here's this beautiful violin piece. Now you play it on the organ. A few problems. The highest note for the violin is an E. Is that high E? Beautiful. Most organs at Bach's time did not have that high E. Most organs, the highest note was a C. So what does Bach do? He transposes the piece down a third for Friedemann to play it with his right hand. so that the highest note was a C. But now, if you would look at this score, it's the first page of Bach's handwritten score for that movement, you would see that the organ is playing in C major. But what keys is the violin playing? The violin is playing in D major. Can you imagine it? You play in D major. D major? Yeah, not bad. So do you know? It's so difficult, it's impossible for people to do that. And yet, the violins play in D major, while the organ is playing in C major. How is that possible? Organs were tuned very high. Violins were tuned very low. So, if the organ played in C major, it actually sounded like something like C sharp major. On the other hand, if the violinists played in D major, they were tuned really low, so it sounded something like D flat major. And C sharp major and D flat major is the same thing. So actually, these two keys matched. It's just that the violins and the organists read differently. You see? Okay. So that's the story. Bach transcribed the violin piece for organ solo with orchestra. Big festival orchestra. Which instruments do we have in the orchestra when it's part of special occasion, celebration? No French ones, no.
Brass.
Yeah, go on.
Trumpet.
Trumpets. We need trumpets. So there are 3 trumpets, and trumpets for Bach go together with which instrument? If you have trumpets in Bach, there's always also. Well, in this case, yes, but not necessarily. You need a good bass for the trumpets, and the bass for the trumpets is
A trombone. No.
trombones are completely different instruments for Bach. No.
The English horn, isn't it? No?
Timpani. Yeah, trumpets and timpani. That means celebration time. Then there's the violins, of course. There's oboes to make it a little bit bigger and more festive. So it's a Bach transcribed this wonderful little gem and transformed it into a big organ concerto, movement, organ solo, and a big orchestra at the beginning of his cantata. So now we have an arrangement by Bach himself, with lots of extra notes, of course, for the orchestra, of his own piece. Okay? Bach, arranged by Bach. So, both very much undeniably Bach. Right? All the chord tones that became explicit and little counterpoints that became explicit in that transcription are all Bach's. Right? But of course, that's not the version we're playing, because she's playing on the violin, I'm playing on the piano. For this to be possible, we needed a guy in the 19th century who said, very clever. So Bach had this violin solo piece, he transcribed it for organ with orchestra. And the orchestra version is, let's face it, a bit nicer because it's a bit bigger, a bit more festive. But it's obviously a violin piece. And how often can you play a piece for organ and orchestra? That doesn't happen so often. So this guy in the 19th century says, look, what I can do, how about we take the violin part, original, and I transcribe the orchestral parts for piano. And I transpose the orchestral parts back to the original violin key, E major. Right? And now we have a nice little version of that piece. All Bach's notes, really, says this 19th century guy. I just made it a little bit more possible to play them in practice. You get the idea? So it's Bach, arranged by Bach, arranged sort of back by this 19th century French composer.
No, I'm not going to try.
French composer who was an outrageously good pianist, a very good organist. If you accept that he probably almost played no written pieces but improvised all the time. Fantastic. Franz Liszt apparently thought this was the best organist who ever lived. Now Liszt had sort of special ideas, but surely this meant that this composer was an incredibly good improviser. Or an improviser that Liszt liked. But that is probably very good. Organists were very fancy church in Paris, the Madeleine, which is a very fashionable church, even at the time. And a composer with more than many 19th century composers, an incredible respect for form and classical form. And also, different chapter, a sense of humor more than most composers.
I don't know, I'm really bad.
Saint-Saëns, Camille Saint-Saëns. Very odd composer. I suppose most musicians would agree, maybe not the greatest composer who ever lived, but a remarkable guy, in many ways a very interesting and good composer. One of the earliest, because he lived so long, he became one of the first composers to write movie music, film music. Imagine that, right? So a very interesting guy, must have been a fantastic performer, but maybe somebody who didn't care much about it. I don't know that he cared much about very many things, except he did care about transcribing few pieces by Bach for piano and sometimes for violin and piano. And in this particular, I think always, but particularly in this case, Saint-Saëns was incredibly treated Bach's music with incredible respect. This job of writing Bach's orchestra version of that piece on two staves to be played by the piano, he just basically wrote the notes there, made sure that she could be played on the piano, and he does not change anything, he does not add anything. It's just Bach's note, just made it possible to play them. If you want to know, other people at about the same time did much the same. For example, a violinist in Germany published also a version of this piece with piano accompaniment, but changed much more. You want to hear it? A little bit? What we'll do is we'll play the beginning in Bach Saint-Saëns, and then we play this other version. How's that?
if the violin's accompanying the piano rather than the other way around?
I don't know about that. I personally, I think this is much more an accompaniment of the violin,
Than the other
conversely, than the first one.
Okay.
I personally think in Bach's transcription that Saint-Saëns almost literally transcribed for piano. The orchestra is much more adding to the whole thing. But it still is about the right hand of that young organist, quite possibly Friedemann or somebody like it, playing that organ solo. Right? In C major instead of E major. So basically that's it. Oh, you can hear, I think, even in the piano version, the trumpets, right? Can you hear the trumpets? Typical trumpet fanfare stuff. So Bach is saying, look, you know, it's a celebration today. Big cantata, choir, soloists, organ concerto movement, trumpets. But what I find so incredibly fascinating is how all that stuff that Bach adds in the orchestra, I in a way don't think he added it. I think what he did is he pulled it out of that violin version. I think in a way it was already there, implicitly, inherently, however you want to put it. All that stuff, that orchestral, the trumpets in a way, were already there when the violinists played this all on their own. Play it over. How the orchestra was already there. Does that make sense? So, in a way, all that Bach did was making that more explicit. And maybe Bach is saying, yeah, that is great, of course, the violin solo piece, but we couldn't do that in a big church. I'll play it with you again, and we add the trumpets. You see what I'm saying? But I love this idea, that all that music was already there for the little violin on her own. And then Bach says, but we can also make it bigger. And Saint-Saëns says, yeah, but you can play the same notes on the violin with piano accompaniment. And it now becomes, with the piano, I think, a much more usable piece for concerts. If you have a little violin recital, well, you play this at the beginning with piano. You can do it on your own. But there is one reason why I was so glad to find this arrangement by Saint-Saëns, the piano accompaniment. And the reason is of pedagogical nature. I think violinists who play this piece on their own, in a way, need to hear that orchestra behind them, playing along. And maybe if they have played it with the piano, that orchestra version, they can maybe imagine that accompaniment in their head, in their ears, when they play on their own. And that's partly what I think is so good about having this arrangement by Saint-Saëns. So yeah, that's basically what I want to say about it. The story will go on because as I looked at these different things, including that German arrangement we played a little bit before, all kinds of other interesting things come up, but we cannot put it all in one choice. So maybe next week, maybe later, we'll do more in this vein. More Bach, translated to a lesser degree or bigger degree by 19th century composers who so loved and admired Bach that they wanted to help people appreciate him, his music, by arranging a Matthew Passion for piano duet, or a Benedict concerto for piano duet, including the horns and the oboes. And in this case today, arranging Bach's arrangement of this violin solo prelude for piano, so that the violinist didn't have to be so alone playing. Want to hear one more time? I apologize, it was a bit lengthy today. A question?
What's it called?
Oh, it's originally the Preludio, the prelude, from the third Partita for violin all on its own. Then, when it became this organ concerto movement, it was now the first bit, first section, first movement, if you will, of cantata number 29. And then it's called not Preludio, but Sinfonia. And Saint-Saëns in this edition calls it the Prélude de la 6e sonate de violon, because Saint-Saëns counted not the partitas but the whole thing, so it's just the 6th sonata and 3 the 3rd partita. It doesn't matter.
Thank you. I'm sure.
third violin partita, transcribed by Bach for organ and orchestra, retranscribed by Saint-Saëns for violin and piano in a marvelously respectful, I think, manner. Jodie Ostenfeld, I'm Jan-Piet, this is my choice for this week. Next week, there will be another choice. Thank you.